Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Independent City Council meeting. And it's Tuesday, February 26, 2019. And tonight it was both snowing on me and also there was a beautiful orange sunset off into the west. And so let the record show that all the councilors are here and happy. Councilors, you have minutes in front of you. And do they meet with your approval?
Mayor, the ones for the special meeting, paragraph 4, adjourn, the I's need to be corrected. It's a wrong name in there. And adjourn, paragraph 4 in the special meeting ones.
Okay.
Additionally, under action, it discusses Commissioner Cohn. I'm not sure.
She already made that correction.
I corrected those and sent those out.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
I go by Commissioner Cohn. I'm sorry.
I don't see that.
It says Linscog.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Gotten kind of used to that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, with those corrections, we're okay? Is that a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second? Second. All in favor, signify, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. First, let's do visitor comment. Stephen Means, you're up. Thank you. Give us about 3 minutes, please.
Okay, yes. I'm brought this up last meeting about the major problem with stop signs. As far as I know, it's failure to stop at a stop sign. A complete stop is illegal still, as far as I know. But and stop signs are being totally ignored from my point of view, especially on River Road and Main Street. Apparently it's allowed to go to the white line instead of stopping at the stop sign, which I don't understand that. I was brought up, stop sign means if you don't stop at a stop sign, you don't get your license. I mean, maybe it's changed, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it would change, if it has, but I've seen serious problems. Today, for instance, I was up at the corner of Main Street and River Road. I see two people had to slam on the brakes because they're not even stopping at the white line and almost getting hit on the especially big trucks coming down there. It's a major problem. And there again, the stop signs are only a few feet behind the white line is where they actually should stop. But there again, I was taught that any reasoning, what they have any reason is unacceptable of whatever reason, whether they can't see or whatever it is. I mean, it's a serious problem, especially with G Street too, is I can't walk across the street because almost getting hit at several times. But there again, it's a major problem with stop signs. It's safety. Safety has always been my main concern. I mean, it's over the years I've had to deal with industrial safety, and it was a major problem there. And now it's on the road also, unfortunately, but that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other public comment at this time? I don't see anybody else. Councilors, I'm going to, with your approval, I'm going to juggle a couple of presentations tonight because we have some folks that are trying to dodge a little bit of weather. And if that's okay with you, I'd like to move up the finance and audit report to now, followed by the U.S. Census report, and then followed by Sheriff Garten. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Butch, do you want to provide the opening, and we'll go from there?
Good evening. We have tonight our auditor, Tanya Moffett from Marina and Company, and she's just going to give you an overview of the audit and the report on the audit. So, Tanya.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Tanya Moffett, as she just stated, and I am happy to present the June 30, 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the City of Independence. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that this is a comprehensive annual financial report. So the Government Finance Officers Association, which is a national organization, the city submits their financial statements to them, and then it goes through 3 independent reviewers who look at the financial statements to make sure that they are up to all the standards throughout the United States, the GASB, the Government Accounting Standards Board's rules, and they also go through and make sure that there's some extra stuff that's required in a comprehensive annual financial report. So if you look at your neighbors and it just says financial statements, it doesn't have some of these extra features. So there's a transmittal letter that's in the financial statements, and then there's also in the back of the financial statement there is a statistical section. And the statistical section is 10 years worth of historical data about the City of Independence. It takes a lot of time and effort on city staff, city's management, to go through and get this information. Some of it's financial related, some of it is not. And so it takes a lot of effort, and the city received the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report award for the June 30, 2017 financial statements, and we anticipate that the city will also receive that for the June 30, 2018. You submit it after you actually finish the financial statements, so that's why it's a year in arrears. But the city has been getting that for several years, but I want to recognize city staff for taking the time to do that and putting out a very high quality financial statement for you and for the citizens within the City of Independence. The financial statement audit is a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that we can give on financial statements. We did have a couple of minor findings. We found that there were some adjustments that needed to be made to the financial statements. Most of this was in regards to a new government accounting standards, which is called GASB 75, which is for other post-employment health care benefits. And so a lot of times we see that when there's a new pronouncement that comes out, sometimes the city or the entity might need a little bit of help from us to identify when there's things that need to be corrected. And so that's what happened here. The city has a corrective action plan, and we believe that it's appropriate for that particular instance. So I did want to draw your attention to that. And then there is also a report in the financial statements that the legislature has said that they want us to look at. So they have municipal auditors look at ORS 279, which is like public purchasing, Oregon budget law. They have us look at some of these things. And we had some minor budget violations that we found, but they're listed on page 144 of the financial statement. This happens a lot of times due to timing differences, and it's very uncommon for an entity to not have some of these minor things, because what happens is sometimes you get invoices after year end, and unfortunately you can't go back historically and change the budget. So your year ends June 30, 2018, you receive an invoice in July or August that you didn't know exactly how much that was going to be. It's typically around like construction projects and things like that. So I did just want to let you know that there were a few of those, but overall the financial statements were in a great position when we came out here. Everything that we asked for, we got in a very timely manner. We didn't have any disagreements with management. Every time that we asked for something, we got it very quickly. And so it's a clean or an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements. And then for the City of Independence Urban Renewal Agency, we also had a clean or an unmodified opinion on their financial statements as well. There are a few estimates that are in the financial statement. So for example, we don't know exactly how long a building or a vehicle is going to last. There's also an estimate for the pension liability and the other post-employment health care benefits. The good thing about the pension and the OPEB liability is that that number comes from an actuary. So the city is not having to do that calculation. Somebody else is calculating it. The best part about that is that the city is making their required minimum contributions, which should cover that liability in the future. So if there was a negative number, I would let you know and bring that to your attention, but the city is making those required annual contributions. So does anybody have any questions on the financial statements for me?
Questions for the speaker? No, thank you.
If we have questions after we've had a chance to read this, can we email them to you?
Yes, and I provided each of you with one of my business cards.
I
You
see
can
that.
email them, or you can give me a call. I'm happy to come down and speak to you again if there was a collective interest as well.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Great. Please do.
And if I may, I just would like to thank you for the work that went in. The report that we received via email was clear, concise. It helped me make sense of all of this in just a little bit.
If there's
So,
one thing that you
thank
want
you.
to look at, the management discussion and analysis, although that's not audited, we do go through and read it for to make sure that it agrees with all the numbers in the financial statements. It's a great snapshot of the city, and it has 2 years worth of data, and it explains any of those significant variances. So if there's any place, if you glaze over, if you're having problems with insomnia, go read the pension note. These can help with that. But realistically, there's a lot of great information in here, but if you do have any questions on specific things, let us know. I mean, city staff does a great job of preparing the financial statements for you. All these numbers in here are because of them. It's not because of us. We just come and look at it and make sure that they're correct. So the props goes to them, so.
Great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
in, and enjoy your trip north.
And thank you for letting me go ahead of tonight, too.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
And since, and I want to just compliment Ms. Butch, as you were lauded by the auditor, you and your staff, and for putting good things together. And again, congratulations for the awards in the past few years. And I'm glad to hear that we're on track for future also. Thank you. Without objection, we're going to keep moving. We're going to have John Cummings from the U.S. Census Bureau make his presentation, followed by the sheriff and company. Please, sir.
Thank you. John Cummings from the U.S. Census. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, councilors. We are preparing for the 2020 census, and I know that kind of sounds like it might be a long way away, but we've got 400 days to go. I didn't correct the slide. It's now 400 days until Census Day. So we are busy getting ready. Why do we do the census? It's in the Constitution. We've done the census every year, every 10 years since 1790, and it's we're going to do it again. The census impacts a lot of things in our daily life. One of the things is U.S. House of Representatives, and I like this slide because it shows what happened in 2010, and not real surprising, places like Texas and California picked up seats, and other states, New York, New Jersey, actually lost seats. We suspect that at the end of the 2020 census, our count of representatives in Oregon is going to increase. But we won't know that until the census is done. The other important thing that the census does for us is funding. Over $675 billion, billion with a B, of federal dollars are redistributed back to the states, the counties, municipalities through a variety of programs. And I know it's too hard to see on the screen, but I do have a copy of this handout that'll give to each of you, and it's available. There's an email copy of it floating around too. But if you look at these numbers in depth, 80% of them are from grants. And when people write grants, they need to cite the population that they're going to serve. So if you have an undercounted community, you don't have as strong of a case for those federal dollars that you want for your grant program. It's also used for state legislative districts, school districts, et cetera, state and local and tribal government planning decisions. Businesses use census data extensively to figure out where they're going to expand or where they're going to close down. Local trends, population benchmarks. What's new for this year? It's been 10 years since the last one. We are trying to optimize self-response. We're hoping to get as many as 45% of respondents to do it over the internet. And this represents huge cost savings for us and convenience potentially for the respondents. You can go online and do it, toll-free number, or the old-fashioned way by paper. We're re-engineering our address canvassing operation, which is getting started later this year to go out and verify all the addresses in the country. We're we're only doing about 30% of it in the field this year. We're relying on other tools and technology to fill in the rest. So more automation. Here's kind of where we are on the road to 2020. We've gone through a lot of pre-work in 2018 and now into 2019. We're going to be forming continuous count committees or complete count committees with various organizations, trying to get the word out through the balance of this year. Early 2020, we motivate people to respond. There'll be advertisement campaigns and a lot of local community events, we hope. And then March through June, the actual count. And then December 30th, 31st, we release the data. What do we ask? There's standard 10 questions that come on the census, and you'll see that there's an 11th one cited on this slide, and it's got an asterisk by it. This is the citizenship question has been proposed. It's actually going to the Supreme Court next month, or no, in April, and we'll see what happens with that citizenship question. For right now, all I can do is assume that it's going to be there, and we need to plan accordingly. Responding to the census is mandatory. It's in the Constitution. Everybody's going to get counted. A complete response, answering every question, it doesn't really say anything about that. So I'll leave it there. And but this is I'm sure you might have heard this in the news. It's been a contentious issue, and well, we'll just have to deal with what we get. Language support. We've increased our number of languages. There are 12 languages in addition to English that are available on the self-response on the website and on the phone. In addition, we'll have translators for an additional 59 languages plus ASL. So we're trying to accommodate people. How the census works. Nearly every household will receive an actual census questionnaire, either in the mail or in person from a census worker. That potentially is a challenge here because we don't mail to PO boxes, and I know a lot of rural residences don't receive mail at their property. They go to a PO box. So if somebody's in that situation, they're not going to get anything in the mail. If they want to, they can go online, put in their address, and fill out the response there, and we're done. And that's what we're hoping for, but that requires some education and motivation. If one of these residents does not respond that way, they're going to get a knock on the door, and foreign immigrants, children younger than 5, seniors, the homeless, migrant workers, renters, and people with low internet access. And so working together, we can hopefully figure out ways to combat that tailored to your specific community. Not, what works here is not necessarily going to work someplace else. So that's why we need to partner with you. We have some tools. Rome is a great tool on our website, census.gov. You can zoom in and see where we think the hard-to-count populations are. And we know where the hard-to-count populations are by the lack of response we received 10 years ago and 20 years ago. So we've mapped that out, and you can kind of tell. Polk County has a couple of, again, kind of hard to see, but right around where we are, where it's dark in the map, that's low response rate. So we can use that tool to kind of help zoom in on the neighborhoods that we feel we might have a problem in. There's a lot of other useful data in Rome where you can zoom in on a census tract and see a lot of demographic information as well. So, complete count committees. These are volunteer committees established by state and local tribal governments, community leaders and organizations. There's no limit to how far we can go with this, but obvious choices are churches, service clubs, unions, labor organizations, that sort of thing. And, we want to increase the awareness and motivate residents to respond to the census. And this year, very importantly, give people a chance to express their concerns about possibly the questions that are on the census, what happens to the data, and to get a comfort, hopefully to get a comfort level with what's going on. The other thing that's going on, it takes a lot of people to get this done. This spring, we're hiring. We've got about 300 positions out of the Salem office alone for address canvassers. These are people that will actually go physically look at a property and verify, is there a house there or not? Is it a 2-unit, a 3-unit? What is it? So we're hiring for those positions, and we want to hire people in the local community. We don't want to fly somebody across the country or have them drive all day to get to where we want them to be. We want them to already be there. In the fall of 2019, about 500 new positions gearing up for the actual door-to-door count. And so I have some information I can leave with you too on our hiring efforts. And of course you apply online. Next steps. I'd like to propose that you establish a complete count committee, and our mayor, John, has actually participated in the complete count committee before, which is awesome. And work to mobilize the community and develop a strategy and work the plan. Key dates. We just opened our Salem recruiting office. Coming later in this spring, we will complete our boundary and annexation survey, which is basically, cities and counties change over time, and we need to make sure that we're counting everybody in the right place. And then in the summer, we're going to be doing the address canvassing program, a lot of recruiting, and then in the fall is a deadline to submit any new construction information. Advertising begins in spring of 2020. Summer, we go out for all the non-response follow-up. Again, if somebody didn't go online, didn't mail in their form, or didn't call our toll-free number to complete the census, that's when they're going to get the knock on the door. So, that's it. But I welcome questions if you have them.
Council members, do you have questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to start down here and just work our way up. Go on, Counselor.
You said the decision is going, or the case is going to the Supreme Court in April. When do you expect to have a decision on that? Or I realize it's not within your hands, but because I'm reluctant to get involved in a committee and try to encourage people to participate if there's a possibility that there could be an adverse action against them.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I am expecting a pretty quick decision by the Supreme Court. I mean, we don't know. It might be something that they debate for months, but my guess is it's going to hit the docket, they're going to have a decision, and it's done. But again, let's assume that the question is on there. Does it make sense to not respond? I think if you do that, you're potentially cutting your community short. For everybody that lives here that we don't count, that's on average $2,000.
I think that's an easy determination for us to make. I don't think that's necessarily an easy determination for somebody who may be in a or documentation spectrum
Yes,
somewhere.
yeah,
So-
no, I agree. So all we can do is encourage and give the reasons for participating in the census. And then try to give some assurance that the data is going to be kept confidential, and kind of go from there. I mean, I think if the question stays, I think our challenge is much greater, definitely. And it's going to change our focus, perhaps.
And I would just echo what Commissioner Cocaine said. I'm hesitant to sign on to anything that's going to marginalize any part of our community. And without knowing if that question's going to be on there, that's what we're going to do. So that's my hesitation at this point as well.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So from the sound of it, it indicated that the surveys were address-based. So what would we do with our homeless population that don't have a physical address?
Glad you brought that up. We're going to do a count of the homeless actually on, I think it's the night of March 31st, the day before the actual census day, and that's again where we need your help. We can mobilize people to go out and count people face to face in homeless encampments, wherever they might be. We need to have an idea of how big of a job that's going to be in Independence, so we send the right number of people here to accommodate. We'd also like to encourage a complete count committee to, again, build awareness prior to the census so that people that are homeless will know it's coming and maybe know where they can be to be counted. I've heard of communities doing things like having coffee and soup and stuff like that, and
Right, Walnut County does a point-in-time count periodically, so.
But yeah, it actually is a point-in-time count, and
Not the most effective means of getting everybody counted. I'll just throw that out there.
yeah, well,
Okay, Counselor?
Yes. In view of some of the recent news we've heard having to do with immigration and people being shipped out of town, what kind of guarantee could we give to our community that this information won't be shared with the U.S. Immigration Service?
well, Title 13 prohibits the Census Bureau from sharing any data with any other federal agency or law enforcement or any private citizen. And again, that's where we have penalties of 5 years and $250,000.
And for how long is that sharing moratorium?
72 years. So
Although, come 2020, the 1950 census will be released?
correct. And which is kind of nice because there are a lot of good uses for that genealogy. If you wanted to figure out where your grandfather was living, you can find
Right, but
him
that sort of
potentially.
flies in the face of a 72-year moratorium.
Yeah, I get it. And I think all we can do is explain the facts as we know them. The data will be locked down tight, and confidential and only presented in aggregate form.
I think it would be a good move on the Census Bureau's part to get some kind of an endorsement from the Immigration Service that they will not be party to any of this information.
That's an excellent idea. I'll take that back.
Counselor?
I think I have more of a statement than a question. I guess it is a question. So my understanding is the actions taken by the current administration against the Dreamers, none of that was codified because it was done by executive action under the last administration, whereas what can be done with the census information is codified in law. Am I correct? Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, if
I don't
the
know if
administration-
that's going to allay
if the
many fears,
administration
but-
approached the Census Bureau and said, we need the detail, yeah, by law, we can't give it.
Counselor, anything you?
I think I'm good.
Okay. I will add that I've been in conversation with the governor's office because they are very interested in this, and we are one of the communities that during the last count, it made a very significant difference in our numbers because we had a complete count committee that helped get people counted, and it made a difference in the funding for our school systems and things like that. We're also working with the governor's office to take the considerations that folks are talking about because they have the same issues. We all are talking the same issues, and so there's some strategies being discussed. And as this evolves, but we wanted to make sure that you folks heard this and heard this early because this is an important issue for this community. Other communities, it's not as important, but for our community, it was huge. And I recall, because we worked off of the sewer and water numbers last time, and we either had, because we knew there were more people here because of the sewer and water, there's some numbers that just don't move. And I think we found I think there was an increase between 500 and 800 people, if I recall correctly. Because the complete count group was able to move forward, and it was a very strong independence group to help get folks. So, John, I want to thank you for taking the time to come and present this evening.
Thank you.
It was helpful, and I'm sure we'll see you in the coming months.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, as promised, Sheriff, I think this is your time. I think you brought some other folks along with you.
We brought a few. If you want to. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for taking just a few minutes out of your day to listen to us and talk about the public safety levy. Quick history-wise, 2015, voters passed the public safety levy. It allowed for up to 45 cents per thousand to be taxed. It allowed to hire 12 patrol deputies, 5 in the jail, 3 prosecutors, and 2 legal support staff, and also for the rental of 2 juvenile detention beds. So that passed. It was a 5-year levy. We are, if you do the math, we're coming out a year early for this renewal. The renewal is essentially, I don't know if this is going to work. We'll just wing it. The renewal is, the cap will be at 42.5 cents instead of 45, no reduction in services, and it'll be a 5-year levy. On average, the first 4 years, 33 cents per thousand is what was levied. So we haven't gone to the cap. Some of the things that, we'll start with the DA's office, then I'll go fix this. And maybe you'll talk about. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Oh, there we go. Oh, perfect. Catch up here. Within the sheriff's office, one of the things it did do is it did restore the point team, our interagency narcotics team. And so that is a big thing that was vacant in 2013, 14, and 15 while we only worked 10 hours of patrol per day. So this, and I didn't say the levy did allow us to go back to 24/7, obviously, and we've done that.
I never worked the button. You always.
I'll work with it.
Thanks. Well, having additional prosecutors, it gives us additional bandwidth to not only, hold people accountable. It also allows us to engage in crime prevention programs. So having 3 additional prosecutors, where we were in 2015, was in a real triage place. And I think that when I was here in 2015, talking to this council and Mr. Mayor and members of the council, it was really through the support of this council, other local councils, that was really able to help us convince, I think, local voters that this was a good thing to do, because I think the local voters really understood that it was important to get more sheriff's deputies out there, supporting local police departments like here in Independence, like in the other municipalities like Monmouth and Salem as well. But folks really understood that it's great to arrest folks, bring them to the Polk County Jail. And Chief Mason's folks do an outstanding job. His folks on the road, his detectives do an amazing job of investigating crimes. But when it comes to them completing their process, they bring them to the Polk County Jail, or they review their cases with a prosecutor. We need to finish the job. And in 2015, we were having a challenging job finishing our end piece, because we had a high volume of cases, and frankly, we were in triage mode. We were backlogged with cases. We were having to prioritize focusing on higher end felony cases, and some of the cases, the misdemeanor cases, the day in, day out cases, quality of life types of crimes, we were having a hard time getting done. These are the types of crimes which make people decide, do I want to live in the city of Independence? These are cases like vandalism cases. These are cases like disorderly conduct cases which bring people to the Polk County Jail. We prosecute. The types of cases which make a person decide, do I want to have my business in the city of Independence? So is there an active supported law enforcement presence? Now with 3 additional prosecutors, I'm able to really focus on these crimes. That's where you see these statistics of 800 more prosecutions as a result. And that, frankly, that's because there are more folks on the road from the sheriff's office, but there's also a real feeling in the community that when I make a call for help, someone's going to respond. And we heard stories in 2015 of people having a feeling of, why should I call? No one's going to respond. We had horrific stories of lengthy response times. We didn't have 24-hour response, and that really resulted in a feeling of, why bother? Well, now there's a feeling of, there's going to be a response. There's demonstrative response times, which are down, way down from where they were before. People are getting response, so we have more calls being made, more reports are being filed, more arrests are being made, which increases our caseload and our prosecution load. But as I said, my office's job isn't simply about prosecuting, putting people in jail. We're also about crime prevention programs, and now we have the bandwidth through the support of local agencies. Chief Mason is involved in all these programs. I have the support of the county commission as well. We're able to be involved in drug court. We started a mental health court. We're starting to get involved in pretrial release programs, which really wrap people into services which do crime prevention programs, which keep them off the streets, which direct them into programs which will lower the recidivism rates for the right folks. So really, as a result of the 2015 levy, we can ask the question, and we can do a lot of statistics, and Sheriff Garrett and I can throw out a lot of statistics, which I like doing because I feel like I'm bragging. We both feel like we're bragging about our agencies, and I think the commissioners may feel the same way. But statistics are great, but at the end of the day, you kind of say, well, so what? And so what is a fundamental question you should ask. As a result of the levy's passage, are we safer? And the answer is yes. And that's not just an abstract concept. I can say unequivocally, I'll give you an example of how you're safer. Driving under the influence of intoxicants. That's a crime that since 2015 is up. Both Sheriff Gardner's statistics and my statistics show differently. They are significantly up. His statistics are different than mine because I prosecute his office's crimes as well as OSP's, Oregon State Police's crimes as well, so we're slightly different. But the trend is up. There's more of those out there because he's got more guys on the road bringing those drivers, those impaired drivers in, so the numbers are up. So as a result, the streets are safer from that one particular crime. And I'm picking a slice out of all the things, but it's a finite example I can give you, so I'm not just throwing out an abstract concept. Not only are people on the road safer as a result of those extra patrols, but so are the drivers who are impaired. They're getting off the road too. So that's why we're safer as a result of the levy. So I hope we're able to get you to help us support this, talk to your constituents when this is out there. The vote's coming up very quickly, so I hope this information is helpful. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sheriff, and the Commissioners, if you want to add anything to that.
And so what I'll say, though, is with this levy, it's a 9-day difference. I was one of 7 that were left during the 10 hours a day that we were just working patrols. So night and day difference. And the county has, and the taxpayers has invested a ton of money into training and getting these folks hired to be to where they are now, where they're solo on the road. It costs about $150,000 per deputy to train them in their first year. And so we've hired 12 in the jail, 12 on patrol and 5 in the jail. And so that's just a huge investment that we need to try to protect. And that is one of the main reasons that we are asking to go out 1 year early. I guess the easiest way to put it, we had, prior to our levy, we had people leaving left and right because of the uncertainty of the measure. And I don't want that to happen again because we'd be right back in the position we were. So, commissioners, you want to say anything?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but this is about livability. It's about livability. Like I can't talk. It's about livability in our communities. And it's not just in the city, but it's when you're outside of the city. And for me personally, in Independence and Monmouth, it's home for me. I grew up in Independence till grade school was over, and then we moved to Monmouth. And this is home. And my mother-in-law lives in Independence right down the road. It's extremely important that she feels safe. The reason people are moving into Polk County right now is that we have a wonderful police force. We have a good public safety department, not just in the county, but in the cities. And that's attractive to people, much like a high school, much like education for people when they drive through Monmouth and Independence. What's the first thing they see when they're coming from Monmouth to Independence? They see a wonderful school. These people think a lot about the education of their young people. And we think a lot about our public safety for our citizens in Polk County. And I think it's extremely important. I know when the sheriff and Aaron was talking about like drug court and other courts like that, I think it's important that we have resources for people. We have a resource officer now that rides with the patrol. It's a crisis worker. We never had that before. If you look at the statistics that Aaron has, 50% of the people that they were coming into contact had mental or behavioral health issues. Do you think it's right to put them in jail? Does that do any good? No, but when you have a crisis worker, they have the information right there with the police officer. And instead of throwing them in jail, if it's during the day, they can take them right over to Dallas, to the academy building, and get them hooked up with some treatment and a follow-through. And I think that's important as we move forward in society. We hear everything in the paper, on TV, mental health, behavioral health issues, they're running rampant. And I think that the sheriff has done a wonderful job with regards to these crisis workers to help cut that stuff in. Give people help. These are people we're talking about. We're not going to the Humane Society and talking about a dog or a cat. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about maybe relatives. Because I think it affected every family in one sense or the other. And so I'm just here to back the sheriff. Like he said, we never went to the maximum amount of tasking. We said that, and we went out 4 years ago, the commissioners did, and said, no, we'll go for as high as we need, and that's it. We got some timber money that came in, so we kept offsetting that down. So never once did we go back on our word with regards to the funding. We kept it down as low as we could, and I think that's a plus for us as we move forward, and I guarantee you that we're going to continue to do it. Here's a new guy.
I'm Lionel Hurst. I'd just like to talk about these two guys. Their departments are ran first class. I've got to tour sheriff departments in the jail. These guys, both of them, are more concerned about the people than they are locking people up. The difference they can make in the streets. And to come back to us and ask for an extension of the current levy, not an increase, that's just people are self-employed to me. So, just like the city of Independence here, Mom, your police department works excellent. These guys are just an extension, but it's just a great place to live. Just ask for your support to keep it going.
So the last thing I would say or ask is we're going around to all the different councils and asking for their support in publicly endorsing this levy, and I would ask that of you if that's something you're willing to do, because it would mean a lot in us being able to preserve and just renew this levy. So that's really all I have, unless there's questions of any of us.
Questions for the speakers tonight?
Yes.
Please do.
You mentioned that you had not gone to the 45-cent cap that was passed in the last bond levy. What was the maximum that you hit over the 4-year period that it's been going on?
37.8 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor?
I went to 2 of the presentations in 2015 that you did, and you sold it to me based on 2 things. One, the fact that you had to triage cases that you weren't going to prosecute. And the other one was the number of domestic violence calls that you got that were outside of the hours of coverage. And I believe there was a woman in the crowd who was from a domestic violence support group who talked about that. And I think that's how you sell this. I think people understand that. I also think when you talk about the fact that you're out in the hinterlands in Polk County, outside of a municipality, and you need help. And I think that's a very simple way to sell this. And the fact that it's simply a renewal. It's not anything new. Not asking for anything new that we already haven't approved.
And I just wanted to thank you all. Coming from somebody that worked in the Polk County Courthouse up until 2014, I know what it was like. I also know the difference it's made on your sheriff's deputies inside the jail, still being friends with them, court clerks, errand staff. So just as somebody that worked in that building, worked there with no court security, and that's got to be one of the scariest things you've ever done. Thank you. And I know it's made a huge difference for a lot of folks over there just that work in the building, let alone the people that aren't working in there.
Everybody okay?
Just real quick.
Please do.
So I'm going to echo part of what my other counselors are saying, that to emphasize that it is an extension. It's not a new tax, and this is in part for our folks at home or who will watch this on video later that may not know the history of the levy. And also, I know oftentimes folks view the sheriff's department as only being something that deals with county areas. But I also know that when our officers, Monmouth officers, are tied up on other calls, we can rely on Polk County now to come in and provide reinforcement. So you not only ensure the safety of folks that live in the county, we are also receiving something from this investment. And I really want to give you kudos for your mental health ride-along. That has made a substantial difference. I have some friends that work over at the jail, and it's made a huge difference in the quality of their work environment. So thank you very much for that innovation.
So Councilmember,
Can I
please
clarify
do.
one tax-related?
Yes, sir.
By all
So,
means.
when this levy passes, it would drop off the 5th year of the first levy. That would cease to exist, and so there wouldn't be any like overlapping.
Right.
I just wanted to-
Thank you for clarifying that. I actually had a note to clarify that with you.
So council members, is there any action that you would like to take?
Yes. I would like to move that this council endorse the passage of the ballot measure for the extension and the reduction of the support of the Polk County Sheriff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I think we're all on the same page here. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Hope to see you gentlemen again. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Have a pleasant evening. Good. As we move forward, I want to take as a courtesy, I'd like to recognize the mayor and councilor from City of Monmouth who are with us this evening. Thank you. It's nice to see you. And hello. Thank you.
And I'd like to say that Councilor Shannon was with me last week at the Monmouth City Council, and we got a similar acknowledgement.
I didn't know that. Yay. Moving forward, because we still have a bit to do, I do want to recognize on a bit of a sad note, I think, councilors, you were informed that a longtime person with our city who made a huge impact as a community development person, Mike Danko, passed away unexpectedly this past week. Mike was somebody I had the pleasure of working with, as many of us did, on innumerable projects, and his fingerprints are all over our community. And I just want to, from the dais today, share our sympathy for the family, and also how to acknowledge publicly again how much Mike meant to the city of Independence and the projects that he was involved with for a quarter century and the people he touched. And so I know that there's some events coming up, but I just wanted it to be noted that we noted his passing and how much it was how much he's been important to our community. Also, under my report, I did want to let you know that Councilor Martin Willis was able to join staff and myself at the Council of Governments dinner up in Kaiser recently, and it was another 150, 160 people or so. It was a great turnout, 43 member governments from Polk, Marion, and Yamhill County, and I had the honor of presenting a Lifetime Achievement Award to former mayor and retired council member Jim Fairchild from Dallas. And it was a wonderful opportunity, it was a wonderful gathering, and I'd be happy to visit with you a little bit more about what COG does or the positive impact that many other people did tonight. Moving promptly forward, I think there are, Councilor Morton, you happen to have two of the council liaison reports, and would you like to do so?
I would like to do so. The library board met yesterday, and it was my very first meeting as the liaison to that body. The Friends of the Library are planning a movie fundraiser on the 18th of March, and the library board is certainly endorsing that because the library will benefit from it. The movie that's being played at the theater, and I think this is our 11th or 12th year of having a movie fundraiser, is The Great Entertainer with Hugh Jackman. It's supposed to be a pretty good movie. Tickets are $15, and they can be bought at the library.
What was the date of that again?
The date was March 18th.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I put it in my
At 7 o'clock, and when you buy a ticket, you also receive a free bag of popcorn and the opportunity to win fabulous prizes.
Thank you.
At the meeting on Monday, their library policies were discussed, and there was some very good discussion about that. Obviously, the board has done some extensive work on updating the library policies, and I was impressed. The museum, which I'm also the liaison to the Museum Advisory Board, the big event that happened this week was this period was on Saturday, and it was the celebration of the Independence birthday party. Independence is 160 years young, and there were a number of people that were involved in spite of the rain with the treasure hunt to look for answers to questions having to do with the 1959 on to Oregon Cavalcade. And everybody who went got a swag bag that included a historic book, a cookbook that was assembled for a prior celebration of this event, and also a commemorative coin. So the bag itself probably had a retail value of about $10, and you got it for free. And it was a great time. Lots of cake, lots of kids, lots of fun.
Great, thank you, Counselor. We don't have anybody to give a WinPeg report. We're going to need a new council liaison. I wonder if there are any council members who might like to serve on that committee. Counselor Ransom Smith, would you be interested in doing?
I would love to.
There you go.
I would love to.
Thank you, and staff will be in contact with you to help facilitate that. Thank you for volunteering. I was so subtle, wasn't I? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Pessamir, I think it's your turn, and I think you get to carry a couple of balls tonight.
I do. Thank you, Mayor and Councilor. I am going to keep my comments tonight pretty brief for a lot of reasons. Just one to start off with. As you see on the chairs, there is a handout to the Motive Assist. We've talked about that before. I just encourage everybody in the community to go on and vote every day. Just keep that in the back of your mind. We are lagging a little bit behind, so we will definitely redouble our efforts for what we can do in order to try to leverage more people to vote for that. But it's an important project, and it would be a great asset to our community to have a park that would be there for those who need assistance themselves. We will be having a council retreat on Saturday. It's going to start officially at 8:30. We're going to have some light breakfast stuff for people at 8 o'clock if they want to show up. I sent out a couple of things today, actually. Karen Johnson sent out something to you yesterday, which was the strategic plan. If you have a chance to go through that, we're looking for comments back by the end of the day Thursday so that we can make sure that we address any comments you might have relative to that. I also sent out an agenda to everyone today just so they could look through the draft agenda, and if you have any comments to the agenda, you can give your comments back to me again by the end of the day Thursday so we can make sure that we address as many things as you want to see at that meeting as possible. One of the things that we will be covering at the beginning of that meeting is the Minot Acceleration Project. As you know, there was an outage that Minot had, and we are talking about replacing some of the equipment in a more accelerated fashion to make sure that that does not happen again. And so we'll be having at the beginning of the meeting a conversation about that and be asking for some direction. You can't make any decisions at that meeting, of course, but we would like to know which direction you would like to go, and so we'll give you more information about that. We'll also be introducing Fred Evander. Fred is going to be our new senior planner. He and his family moved down this last weekend, and he's actually back up in Washington while his family is here, finishing up work up there. But he will be at the council retreat, and I look forward to introducing you to him. He is going to be a senior planner. He'll be a staff member for the city. He has a good deal of experience, and so it's going to be nice to have someone here. That means that Zach Peltz and AKS is going to be transitioning out of doing our regular planning here for the city. They'll have a little bit of overlap, and we certainly may keep AKS on to do some larger projects or some stuff that consultants normally do, but we're really looking forward to have a professional staff member on board in order to do things. So that kind of leads into my next topic, which is on the agenda, is the mobile vending code update. I don't know a lot about this, but this is one of those things that we're going to be transitioning, and this is one thing that Zach wanted to make sure got before he transitioned out. This will ultimately become a project that Fred is working on. And I don't really need answers from you today on this. We just wanted to make sure that it got out there before Zach left. But there certainly have been some issues with the reality that our code requires mobile vendors to hook up to sewer and water, and that has created some hardships for them. And so we want to introduce that, and if you look in your packet there on page 15, There's a memo. I don't need answers from you tonight regarding that, but certainly this is a conversation that we want to hear back from council about. Is this a topic that we want to take up and address down the road? And Zach kind of outlined a schedule for that. Certainly that will change over time, but if that's something that council is interested in dealing with, we're interested in taking it.
Does anybody have I'd just kind of like to, does anybody have an objection to moving forward with this?
I just want to make one comment, 'cause Kathy brought it up, people watching from home. Mobile vending, we're talking about food trucks, right?
Yes, correct.
Because if you Google mobile vending, you get a lot of mobile phone vendors. So just want to clarify that point.
Right.
So that should be clarified in the code, right?
And-
I think we should look at that.
Yes, and it would be worthwhile to look at what the Independence Days Commission does for mobile vending, because this is something that they've dealt with for many years.
So I wanted to give you clear direction, and so go forth and do good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, and I think the first, task that's been outlined here is to have a conversation about what is important to the community.
Right.
And where we go. So that's good to know. We will definitely put that on our work plan then and move forward. The other item that I have on the agenda, actually Sean has on the agenda. Sean, at the last minute, couldn't make it tonight. So I'm just really going to punt on that one. He was going to talk about the 2040, Vision 2040 process. We'll actually bring that up and talk about that at the retreat. We're also going to have a conversation portion during the retreat to talk about what we think outreach is going to look like for that. And we want council's participation in that conversation to give us ideas of what you think might help to make sure that we have a really good outreach program to both citizens of Independence as well as the Latino citizens and residents of the city of Independence as well. So.
Will anybody from the consulting company be there at the retreat?
Not at the retreat, but certainly we're looking forward. We just executed the contract this week. They're going to get fairly engaged in the process. We are hoping to have them as a part of the presentation that we do at Central High School at the council meeting there, just because while it's really early in the process, it's a great opportunity to get the youth input into that process early on, which we think is very important.
Questions for the manager at this point? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I think we're moving on to the Riverview Lift Station project. Is that correct? Please. Yeah, that police chief down there just blocking everything up, that's. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. In your agenda packets, there'll be a report and memo for Riverview Lift Station project. Staff is recommending that we award that project per Brown and Caldwell's recommendation as the engineer for the project, design engineer. Are there any questions on the memo?
It's a pretty straightforward.
It is.
The process was outlined, and this has been in our plans for some time, and, okay.
It's coming in right at or under the budget that was predicted.
And the fact that they bid it a second time saved some money, which was really good. So if there are no questions?
I move to award bid to the lowest bidder, Trench Line Excavation Incorporated, in the amount of $1,158,500.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to hold the vote for just a minute. That's an aye there. Thank you. Okay, the ayes have it. All in favor, we've done it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moving forward. Sorry, I have to. Okay, officer. We're going to open a public hearing related to the OLCC renewals. Officer Hedlund. Excuse me, I should say Sergeant.
It's all right. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. In your packet, you should have had a memo that was created by me related to the annual liquor license renewal process through OLCC. Just as a quick summary of this, I went through all of these all of the licenses that are currently issued within the city limits are up for renewal annually. So we receive a list of those. We go through and we check all of the business locations for calls for service related to those locations, and then go through and kind of proofread those and compile the information and then present it to you guys for your review. I can just go through really quick and do this. There weren't a whole lot of alcohol-related calls or OLCC-related calls at the establishments locally. In some years past, we've had more at different locations than others, and it kind of goes back and forth. So the only ones of note were the Arena Sports Bar. There were 4 OLCC-related calls and 2 DUI arrests from that location. And then as we go through, Mikasita Market, there was a single OLCC-related call that was actually also related to another call for service at a different establishment, so they were at both locations. Chase Bar and Grill, there was 1 OLCC-related incident and 5 DUI arrests at that location. And those are really the only incidents that we had related to OLCC type calls during 2018. If you have any questions related to that?
Questions?
I have a question.
Please do.
Is it fair to assume so page 25, the start of the memorandum, the ones that are highlighted, is that simply because they're closed down businesses now?
Yeah, so I actually put those kind of italicized in bold just as my own note. I contacted OLCC related to that because those establishments are no longer in business. And I was told it's really not of any consequence for this process.
Okay.
Because they still would have a license that is valid. And so they likely won't attempt to renew that license. But we still didn't have any issues related to those locations.
Okay. But if, for example, if Happy Dragon tried to renew under their current location on Sandy in Portland,
it would be a
OLCC
totally
is going to
different,
trigger,
yeah,
right?
it would be a
Okay.
totally different process for them, and it would be a change of location application that they would have to submit with OLCC, and whatever jurisdiction they would be in up there would have the ability to review that, as well as OLCC.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So just for folks out there, some cities don't even do this, but we like to. And the OLCC has the opportunity to just grant these kind of things. But over a number of years of helping them understand municipalities, we've got them to listen to us if we have concerns. And over the years, when we've had concerns, they have listened because cities got together. And so it's nice we can take a look.
This is a much better looking report than we've had in some years past.
Everything gets better over time because our community keeps getting better and better. So this is an action item. If someone would like to suggest something. Page 31.
I move to recommend approval of all the liquor licenses upon receipt of city fees.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? I think we're all okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butch. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks. Before you is a request for going forward with the water rights financing. This has been in our budget, and it's been in the CIP plan for a couple years. You received a presentation in September of 2015 regarding the opportunity to purchase these water rights, and they are a significant, they're significant to our water security and independence. It should close in mid-April is what we're looking at, and so we need to have the financing in place ahead of time. We have our financial advisor, John from Piper Jaffray, has identified Chase Bank at a 2.8% rate currently for a 10-year loan, and it would be refinanceable in 7 years. So we did not put those terms specifically into the resolution. On advice of bond counsel and our financial advisor, there is the opportunity that we could identify another bank and or a better rate. So we leave those out. The resolution just gives the authority to go forward with financing and with a not to exceed $800,000.
Questions?
Yes, I've got. So when we did our rate study for the water fund, because this is obligating the water fund, that was factored in when we did that water study. So that's going to have no effect on that,
Yes,
on the proposed rate changes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
out of an abundance of caution for my current employer, I am going to declare a potential conflict of interest and abstain from voting.
Thank you.
As an
Appreciate it.
employee of the Water Resources Department, I think that's what's
Thank
best
you.
for
I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor,
Please do.
you said this was budgeted. That says to me that there's money available. Is that the wrong term to use?
It's budgeted in that we, in our current year budget, we budgeted to receive loan proceeds and the expenditure of those.
Gotcha.
And just to kind of close the loop here, for anybody who might be watching, this builds upon work that began in the 1950s to secure our water rights, and these rights are superior to, they are senior to most other water rights in the Willamette. And so this is one of those kind of things that the impact of what we're doing, we may not be seeing in our lifetime, as the people who did the original water rights in the 50s may not have seen it, but we are building upon those now. So by doing this is the long view, and by getting this now, this really makes this is good for the people that follow us decades from now, so I really appreciate this. This is an action item, unless there are any other questions. If someone would like to make a motion,
Sure.
I appreciate it.
I move to adopt Resolution 19-1499, authorizing a full faith and credit borrowing for the purchase of water rights from the International Paper Company.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Everybody good? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's go on to council announcements.
Thank you. I've already announced about the fundraiser for the movie. One thing I wanted to say concerning next meetings, a question to the high school's students, because we're meeting at Central High School next meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
On the 12th? I know that the question that's being put out is what's next for independence, and I would like to suggest a sidecar to that, and that's that we have been realizing recently that capacity is the mother of invention. Not so much necessity, but it is when you create more bandwidth, when you can do a gig, the inventions to use it come right along behind it. And I noticed this evening when we were talking to the gentleman putting out the discussion on the census, that he used the term bandwidth as a descriptor of having more capacity. So I think maybe we ought to put a little plug in for what can students look forward to as a result of bigger capacity in the marketplace for Monmouth and Independence. Well, for Independence, but we are sister cities after all.
Thank you. Additional comments?
Last week, I attended a conversation with Superintendent Cabista, and she's holding several other conversations. I think you can find the dates on the Central School District website. It was very insightful. She's looking for input from the community on their strategic planning process.
Great. Did you want to speak about your meeting with the congressman?
We had the opportunity, Kurt Schrader had, it was a leadership roundtable, and he invited several folks on the local level, so I was joined by several of our colleagues actually, from Monmouth, from the school district as well, a couple of our county commissioners, and basically we were just given the opportunity to share with him things that are important to, in particular, rural communities were one of the things that we discussed. So there was some discussion regarding homelessness, mental health, education, many of the things that come up at a lot of those. Also transportation and infrastructure were primary concerns brought up by a lot of the communities that were represented. So it was educational, it was helpful, and hopefully a little bit insightful for Congressman Schroeder.
Great. Additional announcements? If not, somebody send us to dinner.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.